All right, so literally, this is agency, right? And so I can take notes with this from y'all. I can make some notes and stuff. And so the question here, this is about agency. Another thing too, when you're taking a test, when y'all reading the question, I want y'all to be able to say, okay, this is about agency, as soon as you read the question. So you can focus your mind on that section that from when we had our week, when we were talking about some of this stuff. But the question is going to be the format. I'm going to just say a buyer's agent who is calling to set up a showing on a listed property should disclose the fact that she represents the buyer so that the listing agent can avoid, and then here are the answers. And then I'll give y'all the time to read it yourself, because sometimes hearing a person read the question, you're not able to retain it, but this is one of your questions on that sheet. So if you pulled out your sheet, right? If y'all pull out that agency sheet, this question is going to be, let me see. That should be one of your multiple choice questions. Let me see here. But anyway, what we'll do, hold on, let me see. I got it up here. Do y'all see that question on your sheet?
Yeah, it's on a sheet.
Okay, let me catch up. Let me catch up with y'all. Okay, it's the first one, right? So now, let me explain what they're trying to ask you here with this question. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. A buyer's agent who is calling to set up a showing on a listed property should disclose the fact that she represents the buyer so that the listing agent can avoid paying a commission, disclosing material facts, divulging confidential information, or dual agency. So the first thing I want to talk to y'all about agency is, remember, and y'all might want to write this down too. Take some notes here, and I'll send out some key things about it, because I'm going to I'll use something over here. So write this down: old car. Right? Y'all might have heard that acronym. Old car. This is the crux of agency. If you get this, you're going to get agency. Remember, as an agent, you're representing somebody, right? Y'all, let's talk about different agencies. An attorney is an agency, an agent. You might have an athlete, and the person that represents the team or the player, those people are agents. If you represent somebody, or you're representing the behalf of somebody, you probably have an agency relationship. And anytime you have an agency relationship, you have a client and a principal, right? So client and principal, understanding clients and principals is important in agency. So write those two words down. Well, guess what? If you go to your sheet for agency, you're gonna hold up. Let me find, you know what I got right here. So go to your sheet for agency, and I'm gonna show y'all how to kind of use this thing here. Go to your sheet for agency, and in your definitions, you should see client principal. So on your sheet, client and principal, check client and principal. You want to know these things by next class. Client, principal. Old car, the acronym. Let's go over old car. Right? Old car. Those are fiduciary responsibilities. Right? So when you're selling somebody's house, let me get back to the question. When you're selling somebody's house, you have, or selling somebody a house, you have a fiduciary responsibility. Most of the time, if you're selling somebody's house, is a more detailed fiduciary responsibility than if you're representing the buyer. When you're representing the seller, you owe them obedience, loyalty, disclosure, care, accountability. Okay, so that's what that acronym stands for. So What I'm going to do is go ahead and write down old car. I'm going to tell you what each letter stands for. But the most important thing that y'all need to remember about that is that's what you owe your client or the principal. You owe them obedience. You owe them loyalty. Because the best way I can explain the fiduciary responsibility, just treat them like it was you. Treat them like it was you. If you wouldn't do it for yourself, you wouldn't do it for them. Or if you would do it for yourself, you would do it for them. Or if you would want to know something, they would want to know it, and vice versa. If you don't want somebody to know something, well, you don't tell them, right? And so that's the crux of the agency. So now, once you understand your fiduciary responsibilities, you got to know what type of agency it's going to be. Is it general agency? Is it special agency? Is it universal agency? Because each level of agency is different. Let me give you an example. Special agency is when you hire me to do a specific job. Specific and special are interchangeable in this entity. So you might read something and say, what's special agency? You might read something and say, what's specific agency? Those are one and the same. That's what most of the time realtors are hired to do, specific or special agency. They're hired to do one job, and that's to sell my house or help me buy a house, right? Whereas a property manager is more of a general agency, and they're hired to do multiple things: collect rent, okay? They're hired to do collect rent, evict people, clean the units, turn the units, get the property fixed, handle general maintenance. So property management is more of what they call general agency. So I'm not asking y'all to remember these. I just want y'all to understand agency means that I am representing somebody's behalf. Then there's a type of agency. Is it going to be special, specific, general, universal? All right. Once we determine what type of agency is, then now we perform the job. And that's what agency is. And that's, I broke it down real simple, but all of this is going to be that. So going back to this question, what I teach the class to do is let's eliminate. We don't answer the question. We got to get rid of two of these. So if you're reading this, a buyer agent who is calling to set up a showing on a listed property should disclose the fact that she represents the buyer or she's the buyer's agent, so that the listing agent can avoid. Now, I don't like this question. This is a stupid question in the real world, because first off, if you got a property listed as an agent, you're going to pay a commission. So probably A is not the answer. Disclosing material facts. Well, this is why I don't like this question, is because you shouldn't disclose material facts no matter who calling you. Right? Divulging confidential information. You shouldn't divulge confidential information no matter who calls you. But when you see two answers that close together, one of them right. Both of those things kind of mean the same thing. You see what I'm saying? So it's very unlikely that both of those are the wrong question, especially when you got two other stupid answers like paying a commission and dual agency. Those definitely are wrong. So now what we've done by eliminating is we put our chance to just guess it. And this is what I'm saying. I ain't saying you even know, but I know it ain't paying the commission and I know it ain't dual agency. So if I got to guess between disclosing material facts and divulging confidential information, I got a 50-50 chance, and that's all we're trying to do, right? And from it, and this is where this class is going to pay off at, right? Is it saying, okay, probably we already know it, right? Disclosing material facts, to me, that sounds like something more to do with the property, you know? So the answer to this, and I'm gonna give you the answer, and I'm gonna show you why and how we're gonna treat this. The answer is C. It's this one, right? And so I'm gonna go to next, and I'm gonna show you why. So whenever y'all doing these tests, forget about getting it right or getting it wrong, right? I want y'all to know why you're getting it right. So always, no matter if you got it right or wrong, read why you got it right. The answer: divulging confidential information. The listing agent should avoid sharing the seller's confidential information with anyone, but in particular, the buyer's agent. See, I hate that question. Why did they just leave it to divulging information to anyone? But these are the type of questions that we get on the test. And these are PSI questions, right? So that's the answer. But more importantly, we want to get to this explanation. So when y'all answering the questions, don't be on go. Like, okay, I got that one right, so I'm good. Get it right and then read down here why you got it right. Because in there is going to be answers to other questions. But the most important process of this whole process is to eliminate first. Eliminate the bad answers. And hopefully you don't eliminate the right answer, right? If you're eliminating the right answer, we're doing something wrong. But so when we go through these, I'm gonna ask y'all what are not the answers, not what's the answer. Because if y'all can get to a point where y'all eliminating the wrong bad answers and narrow it down, you know how many people would have passed this test if it was just A and B? And if we can get it to just being A and B, then that increases our chance of passing the test, right? So that's the answer to that question. We just going, like I said, we just gonna blow through questions. All right, a licensee acting on behalf of a property owner is best described as what? So let's identify that situation, right? Remember, you're a licensed agent now. You've gotten your license, you've taken the test, you passed the license. You're about to represent a property owner. First, what is that called? That it's called agency. That relationship between you and the property owner is called agency. So what type of agency is that called? And what relationship is that? Remember, I just told you, as an agent, when you have agency relationship, you're either representing your client or a principal or somebody that you're dealing with, right? So in this instance, a licensee acting on behalf of a property owner is best described as a fiduciary, dual agent, ratified, implied agent. All right. So let's eliminate two. We're going to eliminate two. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to ask you, is a fiduciary, should that be on the short list? Probably that should be on the short list, right? So we're going to keep fiduciary. A dual agent. Well, do we know what a dual agent is? We know a dual agent represents both the seller and the buyer. And we're going to go over this. We're going to go over this once we cover, like, when I break it down. But we're answering questions now. And then we'll go back and fill in the gaps and what a dual agent. I hope everybody know and understand what a dual agent is. If not, that will come out. So I don't know if I like dual agent, but so I'm gonna say X that one, right? Ratified. This is another thing, right? We all didn't study real estate. If you've never seen the word, don't overcomplicate it. Like, you've never seen ratified in anything that you study. So let's just get rid of it. So right now we got rid of dual agent and ratified. So really it only is implied agent and fiduciary. Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to define implied agent. So an implied agent, so what you need now is you need to get you a sheet of paper and write down implied agent, because the answer is fiduciary. But through the process of answering this question, we are going to answer what implied agent is. And that's going to be one of your fill in the blank questions. On your sheet, you should see the question implied agent. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Did I add that? I didn't put that one on there. Okay, so look, implied agency is, and write this down. I didn't put that on there as a question. I may even add that one on there, but I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of questions on implied agency, but I do want you to know what it is. Well, we got to understand what's implied. You have explicit and you have implicit. And implied is it's like explicit is like that person is the agent, like they're the agent. Implied agent is like I'm reading, like you gave me a reason to believe that you was my agent. We don't have anything contractually signed up, but you through a conversation that we had, I could imply that you're my agent. It's not anything like written down, or we don't have a document that we signed or anything like that. So what I do is at this point, I stop. And then this is how I study. I'm going to go find the definition for implied agent. Right. And I'm going to probably write that right next to that question. like right next to the answer. So all right, so this is what implied agency: a formal agreement between the client or principal and the listing agent. Now that's formal, it's not written, it's not a written agreement. So implied agency is a formal agreement. Written would be formal. That would be something on paper, it would be written. So we know it's not implied agency either. So what I'm really trying to get y'all to understand and do is just to start doing the process of elimination with this stuff. So let me stop here and ask y'all, do y'all have any questions about anything? Anything y'all want me to do? Anything y'all want to understand better?
I don't have no question about anything, but I had a question about old car. I don't know if you said the car part. I got old, but I don't got
Confidentiality.
Oh, that's what the car part is.
Accountability.
Okay.
And reasonable care. The O is obedience. The L is loyalty. And the D is disclosure. Those are the fiduciary responsibilities that you owe to your client or principal. Now, you may hear the most important thing one of the more important things is that when you're working with a buyer as an agent, you owe them honesty and fairness. You still owe them fiduciary responsibilities, but it's just a different level that you owe to a seller than when you're dealing with a buyer, right? You still owe them fiduciary responsibilities. So what I tell people is treat everybody the same. Treat everybody with old car. And then you'll never go wrong. But there may be some questions on the test that what do you owe the buyer and when you're representing them? And the answer to that is honesty and fairness. Okay. So a fiduciary is a special relationship to where somebody's handling, most of the time is money or something to do with money. A fiduciary is most of the time something to do with money or some serious asset. All right. So the answer to this question is fiduciary. But again, we don't care about that answer. What we care about is reading this. The answer is fiduciary. You got it right. An agent is a fiduciary holding a position of trust. That's really what a fiduciary is. A person is holding a position of trust. The agent or fiduciary. So if you're an agent, you're a fiduciary. And remember, going back here, the licensee acting on behalf of a property owner. An agent is acting on behalf of a property owner. So then you are them. And you should do what you would do for yourself or not do for yourself and treat them the same way as if they were you and you were them. And if you do that, you'll never breach any of your fiduciary responsibilities. It says an agent must be loyal to his principal. That's the loyal. That's the L in the old car. Fully disclose all material facts to his or her principal. Let me give you an example. If you know as a listing agent that like say for instance, you're listing a house and the neighborhood is booming and you heard about a development that's going to be coming that may make the person's property sell for more had they waited a couple months to list the property because this big new development is about to be announced and you know this. And you don't tell your principal because you want to get the property on the market and you want to sell it. And everybody knows it's a hot market, but you know your seller don't know this information. Say for instance, the seller is out of town and you got a house in Tremont, right? And they go to list the property. You know, this is a big development. It's about to be a regional mall or something like that coming to the neighborhood, or if they about to build one of those mixed use buildings or something that they're building on West 25th. And you say, well, if I tell them this, then I ain't gonna be able to list it until 3 months from now, and then that's gonna make me miss my my listing goals and stuff for the month. And so you don't tell them. Well, you should disclose that. That's because you wouldn't want nobody to do that to you. So that's the disclosure part. That's an example of disclosure. Fully disclose. You need to be loyal. You know, I don't, if I got to explain how to be loyal to people, you know, to you, then that we got problems right now. Be loyal. You know what loyal is. Fully disclose. Account for all monies to his or her principal. Say, for instance, you get earnest money from you're representing the seller, and the earnest money comes over in the form of a check or cash. It should never come over in cash. You don't just go take that money and you put it in your account. You got to be accountable for all that money. You know, they may ask you to say, hey, I need to get this XYZ repaired. Can you manage that and make sure that it gets taken care of? And it may be money involved. Well, you got to account for that. All right. Use skill, and that's reasonable care. That's the reasonable care. Use skill, reasonable care, and diligence. That's all within that reasonable care. And be diligent. You can't be out here selling somebody's house and you get a listing and sit on the listing for 2 or 3 days before you even show it to the seller. That's reasonable care and diligence. And then you got to obey. Obedience is also part of that. We're going to talk about that a lot, but know that acronym OCAR. Again, I'll say it. The O stands for obedience. The L is loyalty. The D is disclosure. The C is confidentiality. The A is accountability. And the R is reasonable care. I'm going fast because I want y'all to, that's how y'all got to be able to say it. Like literally. So I might, say, hey, what's OCAR? And you're only able to say the O and the L fast. By the time that we finish up this next week, you better be able to rip those off just like that, because this is one of the most important words that's on there. Actually, if you look at the words on there, 6 of them are those words. Confidential, disclosure is on there, honesty, loyalty, all of that stuff is on there. So the most important thing is to know that a fiduciary, you're the fiduciary, and your agent or your client is either a client or a principal. Write that down. Make sure you write client and principal down. We're gonna move to the next one. Now, this is real important right here. Now we're going into something different. It says a listing agreement between a real estate brokerage firm and a seller is known as what form of agency? Let me unpack this real quick. So y'all understand the relationship between y'all and your broker. You are what they call a general contractor for your broker. Your broker is allowing you to act as an agent for the brokerage, right? And so your broker is really the person that owns that contract. If you were to lose your license or you to move on to another brokerage, that listing that you got stays at that brokerage. So when they say a listing agreement between a real estate brokerage, that means you, really. Even though you went out and got it, it's really your broker's listing. Because they don't say, hey, this is Michelle's listing. They say this is a listing from Berkshire Hathaway, and Michelle is the real estate agent. Right? So brokerage and real estate agents sometimes is used interchangeable with these questions. So don't think that brokerage means something other. It is you. You are the agent or brokerage. So a listing agreement between real estate broker firms, the seller is known. And hold on, a real estate agreement between a real estate brokerage firm and a seller is known as what form of agency? Here we're gonna break this down. Right now, we got special, universal, general. Okay. Special agency is when you hired to do one specific thing or specific agency. You're going to see them interchange. They're going to try to trick y'all. What specific agency? So write this down. Specific and special agency is the same thing. You might even Google specific agency and it'll come up as special agency. Or you might Google special agency and it comes up as specific agency. But special agency is what we mostly do as realtors. We're hired to either sell a house or help a buyer buy the house, period. So most of the time when we're doing real estate transactions, we're acting as a special agent. Now, universal agent is the broadest form of agency. That pretty much means that's like a person that got power of attorney over somebody. They're able to do a number of things, right? Universal agency is the broadest form of agency, and typically realtors don't ever really get into a situation where they're doing a universal agency. Most of the time, that's somebody like a daughter or a son where they get power of attorney over their parents or a loved one or somebody, a significant other, and they're able to do everything for that person. Literally, they can sign, buy, transfer money, handle everything. And then general agency is one where you're handling many things that's been assigned to you by the principal, where y'all agreed to handle more things. And that's more like a property management type of situation where, again, you're collecting rents, you're evicting people, you're fixing the facilities, you're managing the day-to-day operations of a facility. That's called general agency. All of those are on your sheet. Know those. Know what a special agent is, know what a universal agent is, know what a general agency is. Now they try to trick you and put exclusive in there, right? Exclusive agency, I guess it could be where you're the only one that's exclusive, but that's not the answer. That's not one. So this one is kind of hard to do an elimination, right? You got to know the definitions of these. But as soon as you read the question and you see universal, what I want y'all to be able to do is read this question. Universal, I mean everything. General means property management or something like that. Special means only one. That's what normally I do, right? And so the answer to this question is special agency. Let's read remember, we don't go to the next question until we read this. On any form of test that we take, if it ain't giving us the reason why it's right, we don't need to take that test. All right, the answer is special. Special or specific agency, which a listing agent has, gives the agent no power to bind the principal. All right, hold on one second. Let me read it. Hold on. Special or specific agency, which a listing agent has, gives the agent no power to bind the principal. A general agent, such as a property manager, has limited power to bind the principal. Universal agency gives the agent, in fact, unlimited power to act as the principal. So now they just answered 3 questions. They just answered and told you all of the definitions for those. Special agent or specific, that means they're hired to do one specific thing, right? General agency had like a property manager. So just in this question, you've gotten answers to 3 other questions. So now it might be a question of what a universal agency agent is. Through the understanding what this question is, you know what a universal agent is because they just told you. So when you're studying and you're going over these questions on the computer late at night or whatever, these are some of the things that you want to do. You want to read these answers, and each question, don't go fast. Don't think you sweet because you're answering them all correct. It's kind of like perfect practice makes perfect. People think practice makes perfect. I can practice the same thing wrong the whole time. It's perfect practice makes perfect. Like you gotta practice right. And so doing these, you gotta practice eliminating the bad answers. You gotta practice of reading. If you're taking a test seriously and they ain't telling you why it's right or wrong, don't take the test because it's not yeah, you know it, but do you know really why you know why it's right? And these tells you, I don't like the way that they broke this down, but it's still a good start because it gave you the answers to universal and general agency. All right, let's move to the next one. A person who hires or appoints an agent is called, we just talked about this. Let's break this down. Well, we know an attorney in effect is probably a universal agent. You see how they answer these differently? Now they're giving you the definition of this. We know that they just said that attorney in fact is a universal agent. So that's a person that needs to do everything. We know that this is probably a bad answer. So, but a person who hires or appoints an agent or you is called what? Are they the customer? Are they the principal? Attorney in fact or fiduciary. Now remember, we said fiduciary was us. Right, so we should be able to eliminate attorney in fact and fiduciary, remember, immediately. Now, let's get into this customer client thing. Typically, a client has a contractual agreement with you and a customer don't. A customer can leave and do whatever you want to do, whatever they want to do after they leave, because there's no contractual agreement with it, right? And so a client is somebody that you have a contractual agreement with. A customer, you probably don't. And really the thing is like the best way that I can give you and describe a customer is kind of like a buyer. Really a buyer, if you're working with a buyer as an agent, you really don't have a contractual agreement. You might get them to sign an agency disclosure form or some type of agreement, but it's not contractual because they're not obligated to stay with you. Whereas if a seller signs a listing agreement and it's for 6 months, they have to stay with you. Now they can pull the listing and get out of the listing and terminate the listing, and y'all can mutually decide that they're not going to list it again. But they have to sign paperwork for you to list the property. A buyer don't have to sign anything to start working with you. So a principal, most of the time, is going to be a seller, right? Most of the time, a principal is going to be a seller because typically you don't have a principal as a buyer. When you hear principal, think of seller. Those are interchangeable. So a person who hires, the most important thing about it is who hires. A customer is not hiring you. So the answer to this question is principal, right? And this is a definition that's on your sheet. So let's move to the next one. And so let's read this. The answer is principal. The principal is the party. the principal is the party the agent works for. Or client. Client and principal is almost interchangeable. All right. Principal is the party who the agent works for and who the agent owes fiduciary duties. Write that down. Right. Now, guess what it did, though? It told us the answers to the other ones. Right. Attorney in fact is a type of agent, and an agent has a fiduciary responsibility to the principal. They keep repeating that. Right. You don't necessarily have a fiduciary responsibility to a customer. Like I said, the relationship between the seller, see, a buyer can't hire you. I don't want to try to confuse this, but what they're trying to get you to understand, this is what they're trying to get you to understand. What is a client? What is a principal? What is a customer? That's what they're trying to get you to understand because you owe different things to those people. A fiduciary is you. You have a fiduciary relationship with the seller. A client is somebody, a principal is somebody that hires you, or typically the seller. So when you hear principal, I kind of want you to read this question. A person who hires or appoints an agent is called the seller or principal. Right? Let's move to the next question. And literally, we're going to do this, but we're going to do this. And I want to have, like, I in the last class that I did, I gave a lot of examples. I ain't doing that. I want y'all to answer like 5,000 questions because it's in those questions that we answer that gives y'all the speed bumps and the technical things that we got to get over. All right, here it is, right? As a listing agent, now you have the listing. We got to start unpacking these too. We got to understand what this question is asking us. As a listing agent, well, what's another way for me to say that? I got a listing on one of your listings. You're a listing agent. You have a listing. You have a house that you have on the market for a person that wants to sell their house. You're representing them. That's what a listing agent is. What obligations, excuse me, what obligations do you owe an unrepresented buyer? Remember, you owe all your fiduciary responsibility to the seller. So if a buyer comes, you don't owe them nothing but honesty and fairness. Because how can you fulfill fiduciary responsibilities to two people in the same transaction? So you got a house, you're doing an open house. A buyer comes up, says, I want to buy this house, and I want you to write the offer. Well, I owe the seller all this, fiduciary responsibilities. And you can't, excuse me, y'all. You can't give that to two people. You can't give fiduciary responsibility to a buyer and a seller. How you gonna be? The main reason why you can't do that is the loyalty part. You can be obedient to two people, but you can't be loyal to two people. All right. Disclosure is also important. You might know something that the buyer might be struggling trying to get financing. Well, if he tells you that, you should be telling the seller, like, this guy might not even be able to get, we might even be able to get financing. Well, if you go tell the seller that, then you just broke the confidentiality to the other. So if you're ever a listing agent, you can never give two people. I guess that's the best way I can say it. You can never give two people the fiduciary duties as an agent. So when you do have a listing, you owe that seller a fiduciary responsibility, and then you owe the buyer honesty and fairness. Now, look at what they try to do here. We know that the answer is going to include honesty or fairness just by the way that the answers are asked. Loyalty and honesty and fairness, loyalty, fairness, and honesty, fairness only. Well, we know it's going to be honesty and fairness just by the way they got to answer. Right? But they got it mixed up. So the answer to this question is honesty and fairness. Let's see why though. The answer is honesty and fairness. An unrepresented buyer is a customer. Now you see how they're trying to play the difference between client and customer, right? A client is somebody who hires you. A customer is somebody that you're going to do business with, but you're not necessarily hired. Typically in this situation, let me tell you what I do, and I'm gonna probably do it with one of y'all one day, real soon, is I'll get a client where I got a listing, and I'm gonna tell you how I play the game. I don't try to make all the money, especially when it's small money. If it's big money, I want to try to make it all. But if it's small money, it's not worth what challenges I may have if I try to make all the money. I'll give you an example. I got $100,000 listing. I got it in on a 6% listing fee. So when you get a listing, you'll see that we can write our own check in a sense. There's no cap on what you can list a property for in Ohio. But what's typical is 6 to 7%. So meaning if I list your house, Mrs. Seller, you're going to pay me 6% to 7% of what we sell it for. So if you sell it for 100,000, you're going to owe me six or 7,000, right? I'm going to take that 6 or 7,000 and I'm going to split it and share it with the person who brings the buyer, right? I'm representing you as a seller. There's going to be somebody that brings the buyer. But in this instance, the buyer came to me. So I get to keep both of them, right? I get to keep both sides. That's about to be called being a dual agent, right? As soon as that buyer comes to me, I already know I can't represent you per se. I can write the offer, right? Or I can represent you, but you got to understand that there's some limitations to my representation. So what I tell agents to do is if you get yourself people want to make all the money, and sometimes that's not good because if you're dealing with a certain type of property, the seller might be not disclosing everything, and and then now it is you trying to make all the money, and you got yourself into trouble. And this is where agents get into a lot of trouble is dual agency, because you can't represent two people. So now if the house is a $350,000 house, I'm representing both of them. We just gonna have to figure out the way to do that right. But if it's like a house where I might make another $1,000 or $2,000, I'm gonna call one of y'all and say, hey, I need y'all to represent the buyer, right? I want y'all to represent the buyer, and commission is 3%. Y'all, now the buyer has representation. Now the buyer has somebody that can, in a sense, offer them old car. But as a listing agent, you can never do that because you already got that established with somebody. So the only thing you really owe a buyer, if you're the listing agent, is honesty and fairness. You can't lie to them, and you got to be fair, right? You can't be telling them that, you can't be telling them that you got multiple offers and you really don't got multiple offers. So that's the answer to that question, right? So gonna move to the next one. A single agency relationship a real estate broker represents. Now, remember, let's try to figure out what they're asking us. They're trying to ask us, do we know our role? Do we know our role? Remember, the beginning of any transaction is agency. Do we know our role? So single agency is just another way of saying that, who do you represent? In single agency, do you represent the seller? Do you represent the buyer? Do you represent both seller and buyer, or buyer and seller? Or do you represent only a buyer or seller, not both? What y'all think? Don't all answer at the same time. I know what I think. Y'all, some of y'all might have said the answer and was muted. The answer is
The
only
seller only, right?
okay. So single agency, you can remember, you have single agency, you have dual agency. So single agency, you represent one or the other, not both, right? A buyer still can get represented. Buyers, you can still have buyer agency. You just can't. You just, when you represent the buyer and the seller, that's called dual agency. Let's see what the answer says though. Here it is, right here. The answer is only the buyer or seller, not both. Single agency means you represent only one party. Dual agency means that you represent two parties. And dual agency has to be in writing where both parties consent. Okay. You had a question, Natalia?
No.
Okay. All right. The next question. The relationship between an agent and his or her client is which of the following? All right. Now they're trying to get you to understand your relationship with your client. Now, what's universal agency? We talked about this. We know the definition of universal agency, right? We know that means that we have unlimited power to act on the behalf of whoever we're representing. That's the broadest and most highest form of agency. Well, we know general agency is less than universal agency, but more than single agency. But these aren't even answers to the question, really, because they're asking what is the agency relationship between the client and his or her client, an agent and his or her client. Well, we know dual agency general agency is for property management and stuff. That's not anything, they're not even asking that in the question. Is it a dual agency relationship between a real estate agent and his or her client? Well, we know, we just read about single agency, right? This sounds like single agency, but single agency isn't on here, right? The relationship between a real estate agent and his or her client is which of the following? A fiduciary relationship, right? Remember, you're the fiduciary. When you go and when you agree to be an agent for somebody, you have a fiduciary relationship with that person. And if that person hires you, they're now the client or principal. And that's all they're trying to do. They keep asking these questions 5 different ways, and that's what it is. Let's read what it says, though. We always read this. A fiduciary relationship, an agent and principal have an agency relationship. Agent, principal, agent, client, right? Fiduciary, principal, same thing. Fiduciary, client, same thing, right? They have an agency relationship. An agency relationship is a fiduciary relationship. Agents or fiduciaries must be loyal to the clients. Here we go with the old car, reinforcing that. So out of this little section, we're going to stress old car, client, principal, right? Universal agent, general agency. So just this section, that's all we worried about in agency. We ain't talking about nothing else. We ain't winning. So really out of this little section of questions, you got to know what a universal agent is, a general agent, right? What a fiduciary is, a client, right? This is what this is telling, the way we're studying. So when we walk away from this little section, this 12 question section, we know we got to know what old car is, client, principal, dual agency, universal agency, general agency, and special agency. If you get that, when you go to that test and you know that, you're going to be able to identify them immediately. So sometimes what we do is we know it and we read the question too fast and we get it wrong because of that. We can't get none of them wrong. Right. So we're going to go for about another 15 minutes. I'm going to finish this section probably, and then we're going to go. And then again, I typically keep y'all about 2 hours. This time we're going to finish up at noon. I'm going to stop about 15 minutes early to answer any questions and also outline the next class. And then also, like, once I get done, I'm going to send y'all login information to the websites that we're going to be doing and using and getting on. And I want y'all to download the apps. I want y'all on the phone. Tell all your loved ones that they ain't going to see y'all for about a month. They'll see y'all, but you don't really see them. Or however y'all want to fool yourself to do it. But at the end of the day, I just need a month of just dedication. And really, it ain't a month. I just need y'all to be in class, the eight to 10 sessions that we do, and then be responsive to text messages and emails and things. Because again, I'm going to post this on my on-demand page on my YouTube, and I'll send all that information. Actually, I'm gonna send out an information sheet so y'all can have all of that stuff printed out. You can put it in your binder, and you'll be able to get to that at a glance. But this is what they're trying to show us here. We're not looking at nothing else. We ain't talking about finance. We're not talking about nothing. We're talking about specific agency. We're talking about general agency, special agency, dual agency. And this is what the reason why we're doing this is that this is the relationship that they need y'all to understand, right? We ain't talked about writing no contracts or nothing. We're talking about the initial point where you get your license and the first contact is either going to be with a buyer or a seller. And you need to understand what that relationship is. That's why we're starting off with agency. And you need to understand how serious that relationship is. It's a fiduciary relationship where you owe them the same respect, if you will, same obligations, if you will, as you owe yourself. You are them. And you should operate like that. And that's why they want us to know an agency relationship is a fiduciary relationship. Agents or fiduciaries must be loyal. That's the L in old car to their clients. Fully disclosed, that's the D, right? All material facts to their clients. Account, that's the A, all right? Use skill and care. That's the reasonable care portion. And diligence. And obey all lawful instructions of their clients. Remember, they're using clients again because once you have a fiduciary relationship, you have a client. All right. If you don't have a fiduciary relationship, they're probably a customer. Buyers, most of the time, a customer. Even though you owe them honesty and fairness, a buyer can leave at any point in time. So a buyer can be a client once you get them into a contract and now they got a purchase agreement or something like that. But if you're just looking for houses or somebody, they're a customer until you get them into a contract. And then at that point, you owe them, because I'm gonna tell you what, they gonna leave you fast as like if they see another house, they either gonna pull up to the sign, call that agent. Now you done showed them 15 houses, and they done called the agent to the house that they gonna buy. When they do that, you lose what they call procurement. And now that other agent, if that other agent shows them that house, which they shouldn't, they should always ask, are you represented by an agent? And that person should say yes. If they don't say yes, then if that agent shows them that house, then they're the one that get they're the ones that get the commission. All right. So let me finish up here. So, but yeah, this is breaking down old car. And then they even give you the answer again in universal agency. Right. So this is why it's so important to read these, because it's going to reinforce. Right. It's going to help you remember. Universal agency is created by power of attorney. When you got a power of attorney over somebody, you can do everything. You are them. Literally, you are them. You're them. You can sign for them. You can do everything. Y'all probably have heard of that. If you either somebody might have made you their power of attorney, or you could have made somebody their power of attorney. Most of the time it's parent kids, a parent-child relationship or something like that. but it may even be somebody else in the family or something like that. And the courts have to give you power of attorney. General agency is mostly typically found in property management contracts, which means that you're not a special agent, right? That means you've been hired to do one specific thing. You're handling multiple things for this person. So you're doing general duties for that person. And then dual agency is between an agent and two or more parties. So the answer to this one, again, is fiduciary relationship. We already said that. And we're gonna move to the next question. It looks like we got 4 more questions. The type of agency in which an agent has legal authority to act in place of the principal is what known as what we just said that. Which one is that? Special? So let's go over it. What specific agency? You see how they got specific? I love questions like this because we know special, specific, and special
are the same thing.
Are the same thing. And that means that we've been hired to do one thing, sell or help a person sell their house or buy the house. This is the most of the time what type of relationship you're going to have with your client. All right. Universal agency allows us to do everything. And then general agency is mostly associated with property management. So this one says, and the agent and the legal authority that act in place of the principal. Right. So that's going to be universal agency because that is the highest and most broadest form of agency. So we do that. Universal agency gives an attorney, in fact, unlimited power to bind and act in place of the principal. General agency has limited power to bind and act. And then, right? So it tells you again, that's why I like this class, this course right here, because it keeps reinforcing just in this little section, everything they want you to know in this section in like 12 questions. So if you take these 12 questions and you don't know what general agency, universal agency is, just take them again until you get them and keep answering them. Next question. The type of agency which is typical in property management, right? Is it special? No, that means one. General, that might be the good, and when we know universal gives us, and then specific, the same thing. So the answer to this one is general. And I'm going to give y'all, these are on your sheet. So the reason why I'm going a little faster, is because these are on your sheets. So the answer is general. We always read the question. And general agent, such as a property manager, has limited power to bind the principal. Universal agent gives the attorney, in fact, unlimited power to bind and act in place of the principal. Specific or special specific agency has no power to bind the principal. All right, so that's that. Next question. When a real estate agent represents more than one party in a transaction, let's slow down. When a real estate agent represents more than one party in a transaction, right? This representation of more than one party is known with known knowledge and written consent of all the parties. Now that's, remember, now we're getting ready to go into another section. But when you do dual agency, you have to have the consent of the parties and it has to be in writing. Those are the two components of dual agency. If you don't have both, you're doing something wrong, right? Both of them must know and consent to it, and it has to be in writing, or you can't do dual agency. So when an agent represents more than one party in a transaction, and this representation of more than one party is known, hold on, let's see here. When a real estate agent represents more than one party in a transaction, and this representation of more than one party is with knowledge and written consent of all parties, he could have his license revoked. That don't sound like, his action is called dual agency, and he can have his license revoked. Now, if he didn't have this written consent and knowledge, then he could have his license revoked. But they put this in there for a reason. This is single agency and is general practice. It's not single agency because he represents two people. His action is called dual agency. It's called dual agency because they have acknowledged it and they've given written consent that they're okay with it. So this is called dual agency, okay? And that's the answer to this question. And let's read the answer why. His action is called dual agency. Representing two principals in a transaction is dual agency. This is legal if both parties are aware of it and give consent. Single agency is representing only one of the parties. So remember, dual agency is representing two people in one transaction that know about it and it's in writing. Follow? Now, again, let me step back all the way to the beginning. Why are they doing this? All right, all they're talking about is what your job is as a realtor. This is all they're asking you to understand. What's the relationship between the seller and you, the buyer and you, or both of them and you, right? And so we don't get in trouble by misrepresenting somebody. And that's all this is. And then we need to know what we've been hired to do. If we've been hired as a general agent, well, we've been hired to do multiple things. If we've been hired as a universal agent, we've been hired to do everything. And if we hired to do a specific thing, we've been hired to do one thing. And that's the difference, right? I think this might be the second from the last question. When the real estate agent represents more than, well, we already answered that one. All right. It says here, which form of agency gives the agent the broadest power to act for the principal? Well, we ain't gonna need to waste time on this, y'all. We know it's universal agency, right? We got that right there. We're gonna read it still. We were still reading. Universal agency allows the act. So you see, by now, y'all better know what a universal general, and that's all this little 12 question section was trying to do, is to break down just that. And that's why I like this. We're not trying to cover, all we focused on in this class is this. When we go away from here, what I'm going to do is, we already got the questions that we have for this, but this is the questions for the whole agency thing. We're going to focus, and I'm going to send y'all some questions and stuff about these types of agency. I might just say, what's universal agency to the group? I'm going to text it out. And then y'all just text me individually, not the group. Because, we'll have all of these different people responding to the group chat. Y'all go in and y'all text me personally, not the group, what the answer is. And I don't care if you get back to me later that day, but if we do I'm gonna text you like, hey, what's universal agency? I might even call you like, hey man, let's talk for me. You got 5 minutes? Let's talk about this. And so that's what universal agency is. And I'm only gonna be doing this for a month, man. So just make sure your significant others know. And I ain't gonna be calling you at 10:30 talking about, hey Rasheen, what's going up? Break this down. What's dual agency? We gonna have some fun with it. Got to be fun. And what I do is I urge y'all to get into groups. Maybe next class we'll sit down and we'll say, kind of get into some groups of just agency groups, like two of y'all, like y'all be agency, and then in finance we'll get mixed two others, because it's supposed to be about 4 or 5 other people here that's not here. But again, this is being recorded, so we good. Okay, then the last question, I think this is the last question. Which of the following statements about brokerage operations is correct? It says, the amount of a broker's commission for the sale of a home is limited by law. Well, I just told y'all that's not true. You can write your own paper, but what's customary in the industry is typically 6 to 7%. All right. The amount of a broker's commission for the sale of a home is limited by law. That's not true. Now, so remember, we're looking for the correct statement. So 3 of these are false. That's kind of how you got to look at it. Only one of these things is true. So if we're able to identify the false stuff, then we good. So that's false. All the agreements among brokers regarding division of commission must be approved by the real estate commissioner. So you mean to tell me and I'm gonna just tell you this in Cuyahoga County, we got 450,000 properties and parcels in Cuyahoga County, 450,000 parcels. So 500,000 parcels is taxable in Cuyahoga County, right? So that means if one of those was to get sold, we got to get the real estate commissioner involved in approving the commission split on every one of those parcels. And that's only one of the 88 counties. So that's probably wrong, right? All agreements between brokers and the division of commission must be approved by the real estate commissioner. Okay, all right, that's wrong. So the first two are false. So that means one of these questions is right. The next answers. A broker may never recover a commission if the contract was accepted after the listing expired. Sometimes when you see never in the sentence, that's never going to be the right answer. So to me, the first three are wrong, and I'm interested to see what the last one is because this has to be the right one. And hopefully, when I read it, it's illuminating like, oh yeah, that's right. An exclusive agency listing permits the owner to sell without being liable for commission. Now, to me, this question's out of place. This should be with another set of questions. This should not be with our specific agency questions and things. Maybe they're getting ready to segue us over into what we're about to cover next, but this should not be a question of what we've been studying because we haven't talked about any of this. We haven't talked about what an exclusive agency listing is and does, because that's the next class that we're gonna do, right? But the answer, that's the right answer. All right. An exclusive agency listing permits the owner to sell without being liable for commission. So that's the answer. And we're going to read it. All right. An exclusive agency listing provides that the broker is entitled to a commission if any agent sells the property. Let me explain what an exclusive agency listing is. Exclusive agency listing is like, say, for instance, you call me, Pavio called me, say, hey, I want you to list my property, but, I've been out here actively marketing my property too, and I might have a couple buyers that's going to call me. But if you sell it before I sell it, then I'll pay you commission. If you don't sell it if I sell it before you, then I don't owe you a commission. So she finds a buyer and she sells the property. She does not owe me commission. That's what an exclusive agency listing is. Now, an exclusive right to sell listing is one where no matter who buys the property, you owe a commission. And then open listings is where you hire 3 or 4 different brokerages just to sell your property, and whichever broker brings a willing and able buyer, those are the people that brokerage is going to get the commission. Now, for what we do at Berkshire Hathaway, for what we do at Brick House, for what we do at most agencies, you're never going to accept an exclusive agency listing, period. All right. You're going to only be dealing with exclusive right to sell listings because your broker's not going to be utilizing their name, allowing them to utilize their name, and they're not going to get the commission. Most real reputable brokers do not do an exclusive agency listing. Nobody does them. Nobody really does open listings. All the listings that you typically are going to be getting involved in is going to be exclusive right to sell. All right. So just finish reading this. It says an exclusive agency listing provides that the broker is entitled to a commission if any agent sells the property. This allows the owner to sell the property himself and not be liable for commission. The broker's commission is established by negotiation and not limited by law. Remember that. So now they're giving you the answers to why the other ones are wrong. Right? This is why this is important, because now you got the answers to 3 other questions. In this question, it says the broker's commission is established by negotiation and not limited by law. That means you can charge anybody to what you want for a listing. Agreements between brokers or between brokers and salespeople may be oral, right? The broker can receive commission if he procures the buyer during the listing period and the seller accepts the offer. So that's what they were saying is that you have to bring the buyer in an exclusive listing to get your commission. But that one shouldn't have been in the set of questions. So this is what we did. We finished this. We can mark it for review if y'all got any questions about that. So we finished that part, and they rate it. And then they tell you what they are. These are agency broker relationships and stuff. And so we got that one passed. We passed that one. So that's that. So real quick, we covered a lot there. A lot of that stuff is in there, but this is gonna be how it is. We're gonna have some fun. It's not gonna be this dry. I'm gonna give some scenarios, but the main thing is if y'all got questions and y'all want to ask more questions about what we talked about, you need a one-on-one, I'll find some time to talk to y'all. We're going to do the next one is try to answer as many questions in that package I gave y'all. I'm gonna again be sending out the access codes to the section of the website. I don't know if I'm gonna go with study or CompuCram, but it's gonna be one where we all gonna have access to it and we can do the questions together. And I won't have to share my screen. And in that way, you can make notes on yours, on your computer, and we'll just go from it. We'll go with it like that. So we'll just do it like that. But anybody got any questions? It's 11:47. Anybody got any questions? Anybody want to see something done differently? Because I'm here for y'all, and y'all are actually me to help y'all. So I want to help y'all the way that y'all want to be helped. But so if y'all got any questions or anything, let me know. Any questions about anything that we covered? Y'all good? All right, so we have agreed to meet Tuesday at 6 to 8. I'm gonna send y'all a lot of materials from now and Tuesday. This video will be on my on demand, right? It's gonna be on YouTube. I'll send y'all the link out to that. And there's already stuff on there. There's stuff on there about the math. It's stuff on there about selling that proceeds and things. And I walk y'all through. So I'll see y'all Tuesday. And if y'all got any questions, just text me. I'll be available. And I'll try to get back to y'all as soon as possible. But thank y'all for calling in. And we actually have about 4 or 5 other people. I know a couple of them are out of town. I wasn't able to join, but I expected at least 2 more people to be here today, and they're not. So I got to find out what's going on with that. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go back. So if y'all can make them, and then I will, do some personal one-on-ones to try to get people caught up. But once it gets too far out, then it's just you might as well just go get ready for the next section. That's another reason why I teach it like this, because if you miss agency and you miss it too much, then we still got the whole section, and then maybe I can just catch you up on a day or two with what we've already covered. So that'll be it, y'all. I appreciate it. Let me know if y'all got any recommendations or anything. I hope y'all really see, if you don't, this is the big thing. When y'all reading this stuff, if you don't know the word, you got to become competent in it. Look up the definition. We got a phone. Download real estate. It's a real estate a dictionary that you can download. So if you don't know what a word is, type it into the dictionary and screenshot it, and put it on the wall somewhere in your house where you're gonna run into it and see it every day. This agency week, and so make some note cards, and as you iron it, just look down and try to make the definitions as simple as possible. Don't be having no long 20-word definition. Mm-hmm. Make it just catchwords and stuff, because you ain't gonna be able to retain that. It's gonna be too much stuff. So just let me know anything I can help. I'm here, and we will pick back up Tuesday at 6 p.m. All right.
All right.
Y'all. Thanks a lot. This is gonna end the session.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep. Later, y'all.